So, welcome to the Success Code, where conscious leadership meets business and real talk. More real talk than anything else. I
Yeah.
gotta tell y'all, this is a show where we're gonna unleash and unlock the success lies that we've been told our entire lives. Here's the thing. I believe that you get to create what success looks like to you, what it means to you, so that you can build a life in your authenticity so that you can be happy and free. And isn't that what we're all looking for? So I'm glad that you're here. I have two amazing guests with me today for the conversation. Remember, it's a conversation, right? And you get to join in. So you have the ability to put in the chat whatever comes up for you. You having the ability to put in the chat whatever questions you have for our guests, whether you're watching live or on the replay. You can put your questions in. We'll jump back in. We'll answer them. And that helps us to help you with the content that I bring forward on this show. So today we have two amazing guests, Steve Steele and Carolina Zuniga. Did I do that correct, Carolina?
Yeah.
Carolina Zuniga. And they are from the Leaders Edge on the Voice of America Business Network channels. I want you to go check out that channel. I'm going to say it again. The Leaders Edge on Voice of America Business Network. They're also steeped in the John Maxwell community, where they study the theories and principles of leadership with John Maxwell. So they're just really good people at heart. And I just met Carolina and I already feel her. So there you go. So Steve and Carolina, thank you and welcome to the Success Code. And I'm excited about the conversation today because, before we got on the live, we were talking about, what the show is all about. And it's all about authenticity, right? And, you have a podcast, Steve. Go ahead and tell us a little bit more about yourself. And if you want to share a little bit about the show, and then we'll go to Carolina, and then we'll jump right in the conversation.
Well, I thank you, Lorna, so much for having me today. It is a pleasure. I know that not long ago you were actually on our radio show, and it was an amazing time together. And we had such a wonderful conversation. So thank you for having myself and Carolina here. And we'll kind of explain what's going on with Carolina, because I think most people might have known that maybe Ernie DeCumos is my co-host, and she is. But Carolina has filled in for her this week. But I love the title of this, Success Code. That's an amazing title. I'm almost jealous. I should have come up with that myself. But it's beautiful. It's beautiful. But my name is Steve Steele. I am the co-host for the Leaders Edge International Radio Show. We're in over 40 different countries in the world. And Ernie DeCumos is my co-host. And Carolina Zuniga is filling in for her this week because she had a family emergency she had to take care of. So she's filling in, and Carolina is an amazing part of our team. We have a pretty good team. We have a lot of people that are part of our team is in California, and some of our team is in the East Coast. So we have me in the middle of the country. So we have a pretty good sized team. We even have a team in the Philippines. So we have a pretty large team. And so it's amazing of what has happened. And we can talk about how all that came together if you want as we go forward. But I am in Texas. I've been a Texas native for all my life. I was born in Abilene. I've lived in Fort Worth, Texas for about 45 years. So it's been an amazing journey here. I love Texas. It is my birthplace and my home. And although I have thought about moving out to California a little bit, but I don't know about that.
Only if you love the beach.
Yes, that's it. The beach.
That's the only difference. If you love the beach.
Yeah.
The weather is almost the same in my world.
Yeah, exactly. So I've been with the John Maxwell team since 2021. And it was kind of an amazing situation when it all came about, because it came up in the middle of COVID. I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life, what kind of direction I was going to go. I've been in retail sales for a good part of my life. 25 years of my life I spent in the nonprofit organizations. Mm-hmm. And then I spent the last 22 or 23 years in corporate environment. So I have a pretty vast knowledge of leadership in both those dynamics. So it's been a great journey. I hope I can share with you today what has been happened in my life and the things that I've been ventured in and the success that I've been given. But I will tell you, success for me really didn't start until 2021. So we'll
Yeah.
talk about that as we go forward.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. And I love that you talked about, I love how you said it because you're a man of my own heart. You actually made a distinction between leadership in corporate America versus the leadership that you have studied in John Maxwell. That's what I heard. You may
Hmm.
not have said it in those words,
Yes,
but there's
yes,
because there is a difference, right? Because
there
when you hear
is.
about leadership, that's a whole nother show. But I
Oh
just
yeah.
wanted to point that out. So thank you for sharing who you are, Steve. Carolina, welcome. And tell us a little bit more about you, girl, because you're going to share with me.
Well,
This is my
thank you
first
so
time meeting
much.
you. So,
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on here. As Steve
mhm,
mentioned, I am part of the team and I am one on the East Coast. I am from New Jersey, so I am a New Jersey native. And I can also say that my life really drastically started changing once I started taking my own steps and I became part of the John Maxwell team in 2022.
mhm,
So a little bit of my background, I've been in automotive for 20 plus years at this point, and I work in training, which is a really nice side to things because it's kind of like a playground where you get to incorporate a lot of your learnings into basically your own network of dealers.
mhm,
So I love that I get that opportunity, and I've learned more and more that whatever I want to do on the outside, I got to do within, and that's within myself, that's within my own company, that's on the inside of my own four walls. So anything that I get to learn, I get to apply within, like I said, my network and also on the outside and impact others. And it's
mhm,
been just a beautiful ride because life is not easy and we have to find ways to always keep pouring into ourselves so that
mhm.
we can help pour into others.
Yeah.
So, as we get a chance to know each other a little better, I'll tell you more about my own story. But I
Mhm.
can say that definitely my life started changing, and a lot of my own success has started really drastically happening since 2022.
Nice. Nice. I love it. I love it. I love it. So let's jump right in. Because I want to talk about this is a success code, right? So there's a
Yeah.
code. There is a code,
Yeah.
y'all.
There's a
Believe it
code.
or not, there is a code. It's not random. It's there's principles and all the things. And I didn't get that until I started my journey, right? And that was back in 2000, I believe it was 2008. No, it wasn't 2008. It was after the crash. Um, I started going to what's his face? T. Harv Eker.
Yep.
My first transformation experience was T. Harv Eker Weekend Intensive. I didn't even understand what was going on. Now I'm in it, right? But back then I was doing real estate and all the things. I'm still doing real estate, but back then I just, it's like at the beginning. And I went to this 2-day event and it was all these people. It was like they were all on drugs. They were on a high, and it was a lot of noise and a lot of, and I didn't get it, but I get it now. So for me, that was the start of my experience, and I was still on the journey of seeking success. So here's a question I have for you guys, and whichever one of you want to start first, you pick. What does success mean to you? Like truly, like if I asked you, Steve, what does success mean to you right now in this moment? You may even share what it meant to you before, right? You got to hear, but I
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
hear for you, what does it mean to you
Yeah.
right now?
Well, that is a really great question. And I have to say that my idea of success has changed radically over the
Mhm,
years. When I was younger, obviously, it was having a good job. Well, let me just start back. When I first got out of college, I went straight into ministry. And my idea of success with it was to minister in a church and to help people, right? That was my whole thing. I was a musician. So I had a band who I worked with, and we had congregation. We did 2 or 3 services a week. And so it grew and grew and grew, and it was pretty successful. But uh, my success was depending on whether I had a good band or not, or whether I had played the music perfectly or not, or whether I had a great worship service. And instead of really turning to God for my own and I my own acceptance, so to speak, I was depending on myself to do it. And so I spent about 25 years doing that, Lorna, and I worked at it and worked at it and worked at it and worked, but never ever felt the fulfillment of it. And I blame myself. It certainly wasn't God's fault. I blame myself because I didn't understand what success truly meant. What I have learned today, and I've been in the corporate world now for 20 years, I transitioned from nonprofit organizations in working in ministry to corporate environment, and I've been in that environment for about 23 years. So what I have found now is I still struggled with that as I went forward, but the past 4 or 5 years of my life has changed drastically because what it means to me now is success is what is my purpose?
Mm.
What am I supposed to be doing? And when I find my purpose, then I find fulfillment. And I tell you how I found my purpose. My purpose was found in the abilities and gifts that God gave to me. That's where my purpose is. Wherever I am good at, I worked on that. I didn't pay attention to the bad stuff. I've got a lot of bad stuff in my life. I do. But I concentrated on the things that I was gifted at. And I have an ability to connect. I have an ability to administrate. I have ability to communicate. So I focused on those particular things that God had given me. And when I began to do that, John Maxwell taught me one important factor in my life: add value to people.
Mm.
And that's what has given me my fulfillment and my purpose is adding value to person. That's why I'm doing the Leader's Edge. That's why I'm doing a radio show where we're international in over 40 countries, because I want to add value to people. I don't care whether I get a penny out of this. It doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is if I add value to you and Carolina and to people across this globe. If I can touch one, and it's like Ernie says sometimes, it's not that we touch everybody in the world, but if we just touch one person, it makes a difference in a person's life. So for me, success is knowing my purpose and adding value to people.
Wow. 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 I don't even have a comeback for that. That was so powerful. You know why? Because, you know, as a real estate broker, right?
Mhm.
You're making the distinction, Steve, and this is exactly the reason why I'm doing this show, because when you say add value, I got to tell you, back in the day, I didn't even understand what that meant.
Oh, me
You
either.
and I did it. I was doing it unconsciously.
Yes, you were.
Listen to this and just pay attention to what we're saying. The words are gonna pop out at you, and you're gonna hear. Because I remember I had a coach one time, and she says, "Lorna, you are an unconscious competent," and I'm sitting there going, "What do you mean by that?" Right?
Yeah.
And because you get so good at certain things, like you said, your purpose is to add value. Your gift is, I wrote it down, the gift of administration, the gift of connection, the gift of communication,
Yes.
right? But I bet you had to develop and unlock, and because there's a scripture that talks about, and you don't have to believe in scripture. I believe in God.
Mhm.
You believe, just put it wherever you want. But there's
Mhm.
a scripture that says, stir up the gifts that are in you.
Yes.
Notice he didn't say gift. He
Right.
said
Right.
gift. So I love that you named your three.
Mhm.
And now you're using those gifts to add value. When I started in business, when I left corporate America, all I knew was that, and this is probably one of the reasons why things don't work at a certain level. When I left corporate America, it was about making money to replace my income, right?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
in the midst of that, what I realized I did was I will unlock my gift unconsciously by adding
Yes.
value to people, which is
Yes.
why I've been successful in my world in real estate, right? That's why I had the balls to go and there's no competition, but I'm going to use the word compete because the world knows that there's competition. I had the balls to go compete against bigger companies in my area. You
Hmm.
know, the Century 21s in my area, the Coa Bankers in my area, the Remaxes in my area. I had the Keller Williams because I actually was at Keller Williams, left Keller Williams, one of my own Success Power Brokers, and I had the balls to go compete for listings and serving buyers, adding value, right,
Right, right, right.
to them in that's what gave me the courage to go do that, right? So I love that you say that adding value is the game. Adding
Hmm.
value is how you find that purpose, is what I heard you say. So I just love how you did that,
And
Steve.
so, and
That
sometimes, Lorna, sometimes adding value is just talking to a person and saying, you know what, you can do it. You can
yes,
do. I've done
yes,
it. You can do it. You just have to take.
absolutely.
See, here's the thing: when you're building, it's so crazy because when we look at a goal in our life or something we want to achieve in our life, we look down the road and it's insurmountable. It's impossible. How can we ever hit that goal? How can we ever make that thing happen? And I will tell you, you cannot see step 32 from step 0.
Mhm.
You must see it from step 1, then step 2, then step 3. It's a series of small
Mhm.
steps in your life. And it's a series of setbacks and comebacks, setbacks and comebacks, setbacks and comebacks. And as long as you're moving toward the goal, you're going to be successful. You will reach that goal. It may take you some time, but you will reach it. You have to put
Yeah.
it, you if you want to conceive it and believe it in your mind and you want to work toward it consistently, and we'll talk about that a little bit later because that's a big part of my success has been the whole idea of consistency in my life. So,
Mhm.
but we'll talk about that in a minute. But you've got to keep moving forward one step at a time. And when you reach that one step at a time, you can see step 3 from step 2. You can see step 4 from step 3, and you move forward in that. It's
Mhm.
like we were talking before your show. You said you dived into your podcast. You're like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to do it. That's what you do. You jump in and you
Yeah,
spread your wings on the way down because that's where you
absolutely.
learn. That's where you learn.
Jump in, Carolina. Success isn't linear. We were just talking about that before we jumped on. That's you can't make this stuff up,
Absolutely.
right?
It's very true. You know, if you asked me some years ago what success meant to me, since I always got to work on the luxury end, luxury was always tied to a monetary aspect. So to me, the more money that I made, the more that I can provide for my son, that equaled success to me when I was much younger. Everything changed for me during the pandemic when I finally got a chance to spend that much time with my son, because in all those years, he was already 15. We had never spent that much time together. And working remote really changed everything for me because I got that connection, that time to connect with him. And that's also around the time that I started doing small steps for myself. I wanted to just get a little bit better, wanted to fix my finances, wanted to do some things for myself. And then that transitioned into the John Maxwell. Once I started going through more and more of that work and those layers, because that's really what you have to do. You have to know where to start, and you really don't. But when you start working on yourself, you realize that there's different layers to you, and that they need focus and that they need work to be done on. And I always thought to myself, who can I help? There's nobody that wants to hear anything from me.
Hmm.
And you really think that you can't make an impact. But as you go through life and you go through really, really hard experiences, you also learn that the people that are waiting to hear from you are the ones that are in your very same situation. And
Oh,
as I would
yeah.
come out as
Mm,
something, I
mm.
realized that that was now my audience because now they can relate to what I was
Yes, yes.
experiencing.
Mhm.
And I remember in 2023, I got the experience to see, I went to a Live to Lead in Atlanta, and it was the first time that I saw and I heard of Patrick Lencioni. I hope I'm not butchering that last name, but he said something really incredible that sat with me. And he said something along the lines of, imagine having a gift that somebody gives you and you go your whole life without opening it. That's
Mm,
what happens when you don't find your own purpose and what you're meant to do in this world. And I was like, I cannot go the rest of my life without opening this gift. And as terrified of as I was of my own voice, and I lacked a lot of confidence, for some reason, God put that in my heart that my voice needed to be heard for those that needed to hear my own story. So now success has changed drastically to me. And I'm just looking to impact anybody that basically anyone's life that I can touch. Just like Steve said, I'm not looking to change everybody's life, but maybe just one life at a time.
yeah,
And that's all. So
yeah,
that's what success is to me. It's continuing to find that, breaking through my own barriers and really just getting out there and impacting as many people as I can, because a lot of people need this
yeah.
desperately,
Yeah.
You
desperately.
Yeah.
said so many. Oh my gosh, Carolina, you
Yeah,
said
she
so many
did.
things.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep up. I'm trying to
Yeah.
write.
Yeah, Lorna, something Carolina said that it makes me emotional to think about it. And that
Yeah,
what she said about what was that gift that, imagine, if no one ever saw it, if you waited your whole life to open it up, and that makes me very, very emotional, because the fact that I know that the gifts that God give us are there for a reason, and those
hmm,
reasons are to find your purpose and to help other people.
hmm,
You are the most qualified to tell your story. Here's the thing: if people say, I'm not, I'm not good at this. People don't want to hear my story. I grew up in a bad situation. Maybe my father was an alcoholic, or my father didn't love me, or I had issues growing up, or I was a drug addiction. You are the most qualified to
most
tell the
qualified.
story,
Absolutely.
because you have lived it,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah,
what's so amazing about it.
yeah. And
You're the
so I
most
love that you
qualified
say
to
that,
tell your
Steve.
story.
Yeah. Because Steve, a lot of people, they think they're not qualified and then they dumb
Right.
themselves down.
Yes.
And the people who are, this is just my experience again, but the people who are the showy people, they don't show that they have had or are still even having these down experiences, right? And that's again
Right.
the unlocking that I want people to have, right? That even when they see the grandiosity of people on Instagram and on Facebook and all the social media platforms, just know that we all have human experiences. And I gotta tell you,
Yes.
all of us have the same experiences at
That's
some
right.
level or the
We
other.
do.
You know what
We
I mean?
do.
Absolutely.
And to make it that somebody else is better than you because they look better than you, or they may have more money than you, is it's just an illusion.
Hmm.
And again, your experience is for somebody else, right? Your experience, my
Right.
experience is for
Yes.
somebody else. I love
Yes.
that you brought that to the conversation, Carolina. And I want to bring you back to something else that you said about um when you started your journey. Were you I had a question, were you already in leadership in the space that you were in you said something about luxury, you were in the luxury space, was that
I've
in
been
is that in the car industry?
Yes, yes. So I've
And
always
were
been
you
on the
already
luxury side of the automotive. Mhm.
yeah, and were you already in the leadership um capacity when you started your journey?
So my leadership started really when I got into the John Maxwell in 2022. So the pandemic hit in 2020. I started doing things for myself. I started getting into therapy. I started meditating. I started
Mhm.
journaling, small things like that. But really, when I went into actual leadership, it was definitely with the John Maxwell. That was
Okay.
what
Okay.
that was my biggest step. I
Okay.
didn't really know too much about leadership. I didn't have good leaders around me to teach me so much. I don't want to downplay my bosses or anything in that way. I had a good one, but I've learned the difference of a really good leader now. I've learned
Yeah.
it, and I've learned to become a better leader at home with my own son.
Mhm.
So that's really when my actual leadership journey started.
Hmm.
Okay. And the reason why I asked you that was because I heard you when you said you were in the automotive industry, and I know that they have, you know, different um, levels of leadership. Maybe we get to talk about that, Steve, in this conversation because it came up again. Because I actually wrote, was it? I'm trying to remember when did I write that? Give me a second. Yeah, I wrote an ebook on that. I wrote
Mm.
an ebook on the uh, lead thyself. I either called it lead thyself or I forgot what I called it. I think it's lead thyself. And it was in that book I was talking about the distinction between um, self leadership and quote unquote leadership from a corporate standpoint where it's top down leadership versus
Hmm.
leadership from the self and spreading that into the corporation. What do you guys, what conversation can we have around that? Because I think it came up the
So
second time around, so it gets to be had right
ask the
now.
question one more time. Ask the question one more time.
So what's the distinction in your mind
Mm.
between corporate leadership and the
Ah.
leadership as we have it in this conversation? Because it's obviously two different things. It can be one, right?
Mm.
If if it's used in the correct way, it can be one and the same. But so I'll give you an example. When I was coming up in corporate America, it was top down leadership, meaning you're the boss, you do as I say and nothing else.
Yep.
And if you don't
Yep.
want to do what I say, you can leave. That's
Hmm.
corporate
Hmm.
leadership, right? And
Hmm.
I think that's the same. I'm not in corporate America now, but I think it's the same way even
Yeah.
now,
It
right?
is. Hmm.
Except I see where a lot of corporations are leaning into the self leadership portion of it, bringing that in so that they can increase their level of corporate leadership, right? And make it such that it's more even than this top down thing, right? Like you shared, like you
Right.
said, Carolina, they'll share and they can communicate better. They share their communication better. When you know how to self lead, you don't blame people. You don't get
Right.
angry over it. Yeah, you get angry, but you manage your
Yep.
emotions. Because a lot of times,
Hmm.
when I was in corporate America, my one of the bosses I had, he when he got upset, he was screaming and yelling at everybody in the office. Well, that's not leadership. Like manage
Hmm.
your emotions. That's leadership, right? So
Hmm.
that's where I'm going with this conversation because I think that's part of being successful. Because if you, and by the way, a lot of those top leaders, they tend to have a lot of problems within their marriages and outside relationships outside of corporate America because they don't know how to manage that. They bring it into the corporate world, thinking that, okay, now I'm the boss. I could talk to the people in my office any which way, and that's coming from something outside of the office.
That's the problem. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So self-leadership, that's why I believe that. And that's why I wrote the book. Self-leadership is the foundation of leadership. Because if you can't lead yourself, you're gonna have problems everywhere else. What do
Absolutely.
you say? What say
Absolutely.
you?
Me?
Go ahead, Carolina. Yeah.
So I think the difference with that, I wouldn't call all of it leadership. That's when somebody
Mm.
gets the title of a manager and then they run
Mm.
with it, and that's a problem because I've noticed that a lot in my own industry, especially long ago when I was in dealerships, because now I am in corporate America, still in automotive, but on the corporate side of things. And I had experienced a lot of times where managers would get these titles and just run with it, and that was enough for them because they were a manager. Meanwhile, they didn't have any of the resources or the tools to actually manage their team or manage their people well. So you make a really good point about the self leadership because you have to learn how to invest in yourself. And I've had many managers where we would fight, because the way that they would talk to me is the way that you're going to get a response. That's
Hmm.
just really it. Delivery is everything. And so I was now, like I mentioned, I started stepping into leadership and now I know how to lead myself much better. But in the interim of that, I also have a great leader. in my job now. And I've gotten a chance to see a lot of the things that maybe I agree with, some that I don't, but that's okay. But she leads very well. And that's really important. And a lot of those things that I learned from her, it's funny because I take home with me because I still lead at home and I lead myself. So I think it's really important to not take that title and just run with it, but making sure that you're backing up all these actions and doing the right thing, just like you said, and taking accountability, being able to give and take feedback. That's a big one.
Big
I
one.
Oh
was
yeah,
Yeah.
not
big, huge.
able to do either.
Yeah.
And just talking about certain things, the effective communication, and just getting a chance to connect with your team, to connect on that human aspect of the things that move you and drive you, and getting that chance to really know that person. So I think that's really important, and a lot does come down
Mhm.
to the self leadership aspect of it,
Yep.
because you may not always have a good leader. Not everybody has that blessing, really. I,
Right.
I i think it's a blessing because I went all my career, and until now it's the first time that I've really gotten a chance to experience it. And not everybody gets that. So I think it's really
Yeah.
important to take responsibility for yourself and say, okay, I want to do things differently, because you're right, it's a domino effect. And that goes into your home life, into how you parent, relationships, everything else, everything else. So it
Mhm.
starts with you. It has to start
Yeah.
with
Absolutely.
you. We can't always
It's
count on somebody
Absolutely.
beautiful.
else.
Exactly. There's so many things, Carolina, and my head's going crazy because there's so many things there in that conversation. We could do a whole show on about 4 or 5 of those things, connection, self-awareness, self-leadership, all of those different things. And you made me think of something that was just brilliant. Uh, when you talked about management and leaders, there's a
Mhm.
huge difference. And let me tell you what I think it is. You manage things and you lead people.
Mm.
Love
You
that.
don't manage people. They cannot be managed. People cannot be managed. They must be led. You can manage a list of stuff, prioritize this, and this. This is what has to happen. You can manage all of these things. And it takes a good person, a good manager to do that. But not all managers are good leaders. And not all good leaders are good managers. There's a big difference. I have to be very honest with you. My ability to lead is much greater than my ability to manage because I don't like the details. I'm a visionary person. I don't like details, right? So I don't want
I
to
love you,
manage the details.
Steve. Thanks for your vulnerability.
But it's the
And just
truth.
going
And
there. Yeah.
yeah, but see, the thing is that's what makes Ernie and I work together so good because she does. She is an implementer. She knows how to
Mhm.
work those details, and she's been out this week, and it's been Carolina. And I will tell you the truth. This is a God truth, if there ever was one. If I didn't have Carolina this week, I'd have fallen apart all week long. Because Carolina
Yo.
knows how to do those things too. She knows how to implement those things, and she was a great asset to me this week. But that's the truth of it. Leading is leading people, and it's making those connections, like Carolina said. And oftentimes in big corporations, they're more metric driven, and
Mhm.
you cannot lead by metrics. Metrics are great tools, wonderful tools to use to see how you're doing and to measure your progress, but they are not ways to lead people. Get that mixed up. And because you have to lead people by connection. And that's what it is, especially with the diversity we have in the workforce. I have people working for me, Laura, that are baby boomers, and I have people working for me on this end who are Gen Zers. How do you connect those people together? How do they all come together? Because they have different ideas of how to do this and different ideas how to do it. I will tell you, the new group coming up, the new Gen Z, the alphas coming up, their idea of workplace is totally different than my idea of workplace. We were talking about top down before. That's how leadership is. They don't believe that. That is not. It is how you make me feel when I come to work,
Absolutely.
and it's different. And so, as a leader, I have to figure that out. I have
Yeah.
to because the turnover can be so great if you do not. And I've experienced that turnover, and it's painful. So
Mhm.
I have to, as a leader, figure that out. How do I make those connections every single day with those people? And not just that, but your millennials, they're the drivers. They like to work hard, but they like to drive, but they like certain things. Baby boomers like me, we just go to work. We do what we're told and we just make it happen. That's just how we do it. That's what we were told. But it's different and it changes. The diversity of the workforce is so much different than it used to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What I love about this conversation that you're in, Steve, is that what I can hear is that you have figured out, at least you have figured out the differences, right? And that's the
I
part.
think so.
But that's the part that's key, right? Because if you don't figure that out, then the community, because we use, I'm going back to Carolina's words, or maybe it was yours, Steve. Administer, connect, and communicate. Those things are like pillars, right? Those are the pillars of communication and how you get to lead these people, right? And how you self lead, because now you know, and this is so good. Now you know the categories of the people. Then you can manage your emotions when you're leading each one of them. You manage your emotions when you lead in the Gen Zers. You manage your emotions when you lead the millennials. But most people don't understand that piece of it.
They don't.
Right?
They don't.
That you gotta lead, and this is the success. This is part of success in my world, is being able to communicate with different types of people, right? In the way they can hear, understand, and receive, right?
Yes.
Because the reason why people have turnover rates is because they're not communicating properly with
that's
the people who are
so spot on.
Yeah,
so spot on.
I agree.
And this is the self leadership that I'm talking about.
Right.
Learning other people so that you can communicate. Carolina, you said something about response. People only respond to you by the way you deliver the communication, right? So if you're not getting the response that you wanted, well, it's not them.
Exactly. Yeah, Lorna, that's beautiful. And let me just bounce back on what Carolina said. That's so true, because people don't really, and I want to, and let me just share this, because I think we're on a good spot for this. The people that work for you, the employees, or the people that are subordinate to you, you're the leader. They really, 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 really only want to know 3 basic things from you as a leader. 3 basic things. They don't care about anything else. Honestly, they don't. They don't care how much you know about the job. They don't care how much you know about this or that. They only want to know 3 basic things. 1, do you care about me? Do you care about me as a person? Number 2, can you help me if I have an issue and I can't make it to work, or I've had childcare issue, or if I have can you help me if I need time off? Can you help me? And number 3, can I trust you? If you as a leader can answer yes to all 3 of those particular things, then you're far along more in leadership than you think you are, because that's really the basic things they all want to know. Those 3 basic things. And I remember as a young man, my father telling me, he said, Steve, he said, and I was leaving for college at 18 years old, and I love my father. My father taught me a lot about leadership. He actually got me listening to tapes from Earl Nightingale. Way back, Earl Nightingale. I used to listen to these cassette tapes, and he'd make me listen. He paid me $5 for every tape I'd listen to. Wasn't that crazy? And every tape, but I had to come back with them because he knew them. I had to come back with the right. I couldn't fake it. There's no way I could fake it. So I listened to these tapes, and he taught me. And he said, Steve, he said, you're going off to college. You're going off into life. He said, 2 things for you. He said, your attitude toward life will determine life's attitude toward you. And I took that to heart, Lorna. I took it to heart. And he also told me one thing else. He said, Steve, every person you come in contact with, make sure you treat them as though they're the most important person in the world. And he kind of chuckled, and he said that, he said, for 2 reasons. For even though they may never, ever admit it, to them, they really are the most important person in the world. He kind of chuckled and laughed. And then second, he said, simply because that's the way human beings ought to treat each other.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that people were, you can say just about anything you want to people, but they're going to only remember you for the way you make them feel.
Yup. Maya
Oh my
Angelou.
gosh.
Maya
Boom.
Angelou. Yes.
Yes, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
So,
love that you
I love
listen to
that.
Earl Nightingale too. My I started, I remember this so vividly. My grandfather used to, I'm from Jamaica.
mhm.
We call it the front, y'all call it the front porch, we call it the veranda. So my grandfather used to sit on the veranda every night, um, in the dark, street light pouring, on the front there. And as young as I can remember, he used to bring my brother and myself to listen to Earl Nightingale on that
Yes.
front porch.
Yeah.
I think I was maybe five,
Mhm.
five, and
Mhm.
it's so fascinating to me that in this stage of my life, it's coming back
Mhm.
into
Full
play
circle.
in the whole, what I'm creating now. So
Mhm.
I love that. But Carolina, what say you on this? So we are, believe it or not, guys, we are at almost 45 minutes. We have a couple more minutes to go. But I want to hear your final take on the leadership portion, because you brought up a lot of good juice in the leadership
Yeah, she
space.
did.
And I believe that, and I love that you did that, because I wanted to bring the self leadership to the conversation. I didn't know it was going to come out on this show, but it's the foundation of success, I believe.
Yes.
This is not a political show, and I could go into the political piece arena, but I won't. But just know, guys, as you're listening to this, listen to it and map it into our
Mhm.
economy and what's happening
Mhm.
in our
Mhm.
world right now,
Yeah.
because it's paramount that not only do you look at our leaders in the world, and see how they're leading. You got to look at how you're leading yourself based on their leadership, right? How you're responding to their language, their actions, all the things. You got to be responsible for how you respond to anything that's going on in the world, right? That's part of what I want to make sure people get from this conversation. It's
Yes.
not just about
Absolutely.
corporate America, it's
Right.
about
Absolutely.
you leading
Life.
yourself in your life,
Yes.
right? How do you respond to the wars? How do you respond to, the economy? How do you respond to, you know, the tariffs that are going on in this country? So pay attention. That's part of the conversation. That's part of what the show is all about, to awaken you to start thinking about how you want to live your life. It's paramount, because conscious leadership means you get to be responsible,
That's right.
right?
Yes, yes. I would like to say something to that. The conscious leadership. I love that you said that, because one thing that I also noticed for myself personally, I noticed that you have to really be intentional about leading yourself in the correctly in every area, not just one, because then you have a cap basically.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, for example, you can't just be a good leader at work and then not take care of your personal life, because there's a cap to that. You can only grow so much. You really have to be intentional in putting those pieces together in every aspect. And that's
Mhm,
when you become your most authentic self and basically the same all around.
mhm,
And when I was focused on just trying to lead myself, but for example, I was in a really bad space in my personal relationship, a really dark place, and a lot of triggers, and it would make me react in ways that I didn't want to react. But then at work, I was much better. I was a complete different person. But there was only so much of that that I could do, because that anger and then me trying to lead myself well in other areas, it's like water and oil.
too much
And I
work.
A
too
lot
much
of work.
work, too much
Mhm,
work. And I realized that once I let go of certain things and I put that focus in on those areas too, that's when things start really kind of aligning. And I'm like, okay, now I'm the same person in every area of my life where before I wasn't. And so I think that makes a really, really big difference, that
Yeah.
you have to lead yourself kind of in all areas. In all areas. It
Mhm.
can't just be in one aspect. You have to do it in all areas. And that for me was a really big game changer when I can kind
Mhm.
of start doing that. And it made me a better parent, a better friend, a better daughter in all those areas, because I lacked in certain areas. I'm human and I'm not perfect by any means, but once I started to do things intentionally and I wanted to become my most authentic self in every area, so that if you know me and if somebody at work and then one of my friends and my son, they can all say the same things about me. I don't want people to say different things about me.
Mm, mm,
Mhm.
mm.
And so that's a big thing for me.
Can
Yeah.
I, can I stretch you into giving us an example, a little one, because just an example, so they can see it. Because sometimes you say that you got to be authentic in every area of your life. You got to be the same in every area of your life. Sometimes it's hard for people to kind of visualize. Well, how could that look for me? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Can you share a quick example, like of a
One
situation where you
one
were?
quick one quick example. I don't know if this answers the question, but I'm writing a book. And so I imagine my son and everybody reading this book. And I don't want people looking at that book and reading words like, this is not her, this is not that. And so every word has to be true in there, even if it doesn't make me look so great, because I have to come out as my authentic self.
Yeah.
And that to me, I don't know if that answers that question, but that's the
Yep.
best example that I can give, because my son may not be a huge reader now. He's 20 years old, but if he knows he's in that book, he's going to want to know what's being said. And I don't want, he'll be the first one. Kids are the first one to put you in your place. Like, that's not
Yeah.
you.
That's
That's
not you.
not you. What are you talking about? I don't want that.
Exactly.
I don't want that. You know, I
Yeah.
don't want that. I really just want to fill those gaps. And I just want to be my best self, but all around. I want everyone to know me as that one
Yeah.
same person. And
Yeah.
there's some
Mhm.
areas that I still need to get better on, but that's really where I'm headed, and all that I want to do.
Yeah. I
All
love
that I'm
that.
doing,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That was a good example, perfect example.
Mhm.
Because then
Mhm.
when somebody reads the book and they're like, "Oh my god, that don't even sound like her," right?
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
Mhm.
yeah. If they know
Exactly.
you,
Yeah.
got it, got it, got it. Steve, what say you?
Wow. And Caroline is so right. That's so powerful about being authentic with yourself, and I'm still learning that. I really am. And I'm quite a bit older than Caroline. I'm quite a bit older than Ernie. And so I'm still learning those things about how to be authentic, how to be the best version of who I can be. But I do know that the thing that has caused me to be more successful than anything is the ability to be consistent in the areas that I'm working on. And I will tell you, never underestimate the compounding effect of consistency. When you are consistent and it grows over and over, it begins to compound in your life. Let me give you an example. When I was a young father, I took my kids to a birthday party, okay? And I didn't want to go, but they wanted to go. They were only like 8 or 9 years old. They wanted to go. And so when we got there, they had a pinata hanging from a tree branch, and these kids were out there swinging at the pinata. So they take a little guy, blindfold him, spin him around, give him a bat, and he hit that pinata. He'd knock and whale it and knock and whale it. Next little kid would step up, blindfold him, spin him around. He'd take that thing, and 4 or 5 kids, these boys got up there and hit that pinata, and nothing happened. So they all jolted and went to the playground. I'm sitting there watching this 4-year-old little girl walk up to it. They blindfold her, spin her around. She takes the bat and whack. One time, all the candy comes out. Now, the question I have, was it that just that one time that the little girl hit that pinata that made the candy up? Or was it all those times that were compounded over many, many whacks of those boys? Because when the candy came out, everybody came and got the candy. And the point of that is most people quit before the candy of life comes out. I'm not going to quit.
I love
I'm going to
that.
keep going. I'm going to keep punching the pinata. I'm going to keep knocking it, because that's what builds consistency, what builds sustainability in your life. It brings you to the goals that you want to go to. So never, ever underestimate that compounding effect of consistency. It's huge. It really is
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what brought more success than anything for me.
Yeah. I love that. As you shared that story just now, I bet that little girl was sitting there watching the boys and
Yes.
playing it in her head about how
That's
she
right.
was gonna hit it. That
Yes.
also compounded.
That's right.
That's what came to my mind when you as you were sharing that story just now.
Yep.
And that's why she was able to hit it just one time. It
That's
wasn't
right.
that she didn't do the work of hitting, but she leverages a whole nother conversation.
Oh yeah.
It is.
She
It's self-awareness
leveraged.
and mindset. It's everything. Yeah.
Yes, she used the work of other people, imagined herself hitting it, and did it one time, and that was it. It's still
Yeah.
compounded because she had to
Yep.
compound it in her mind.
Yep.
Oh
Yep.
my gosh, this is so good. Y'all have been amazing.
Thank you. It's been a
So
pleasure.
What a pleasure
thank
to be
you,
on
thank
here.
you.
Really
I,
has. What a great conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is some serious stuff, and I think that this is the work. This is the work we're putting here to do. This is part of the purpose that you talked about, Steve. This is
Mhm.
part of, just awakening people. My mission is to awaken people to their authentic selves, right? So
Absolutely.
having these conversations, whether you hear it today, it's like, as I said before, I was listening to Earl Nightingale when I was 5. I didn't know I was going to come back to listen to Earl Nightingale when I'm 50,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So, you know, having conversations and the ability that we have right now to leave it in the ethosphere, to live on beyond us is part of the purpose. So I appreciate you
Mhm.
jumping on today and sharing your stories and sharing your theories and principles that you've learned. And I know that this is just the beginning, right? This is just the beginning of
Yes.
you guys doing the ripple effect. I want to say one thing that I think it was Carolina who talked about it. And maybe mixing it up. Y'all kind of like say the same thing different ways. So um, I remember you said something about, I think it was Steve though, about the grave. And as I've been going through my leadership journey, the leadership principles that I've been trained on, one of the exercises during the training was to go to a graveyard and come back and tell the entire team what you saw. And the idea of it was that the richest place in the world, the richest place in the world was that graveyard, because so many people did not stir up the gifts that are within them.
Mm.
The gift of communication, like you
Mm.
said, Steve, the gift of administration, the gift of connection. And my hope is that people hear us and they listen, take what they can from it, stir up the gift, and go out into the world and share it with somebody else. And like Carolina says, if it's only one person, that one person, you never know who they're going to impact.
That's right.
That
That's
one
right.
person could impact a million because of you.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And you're determining what success is for you,
That's right.
for anybody else.
definitely.
Yeah.
That's right. Beautiful. Beautiful.
So I'm going to give each of you an opportunity to share your last, um, what do you want to call it? Your last words with the audience for this week. And Carolina, if you want to go first.
Well, I just have to piggyback off what you just said because I used that the other day actually in a workshop, and it was from Les Brown, and basically along
Mhm.
those lines, how many dreams and hopes just go to die in a graveyard, and if you walk past it, the cemetery, that's all that you see, and you don't want it to be you. Don't let that be you. Don't let
Yep.
your fear take over and basically let all of those hopes and those dreams, even if it's very small, even if you don't know what it is that you want to do, just go to waste. Don't. Think it's so important to just find anything to motivate you, and even when you don't have the motivation, to find it within yourself to know that you deserve more. You
Yeah.
deserve more.
Yeah. And I think that's a good way to end the show, because I challenge leaders, go out and do that exercise. Go out to the graveyard. I've done it. Go out to a graveyard. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to look between the dash and think of your own life. What's between the dash?
Yeah.
You can respond back to maybe what those people did. If you know them, look at their lives, how they were successful, but then think about your own life. What's going to be between the dash?
What's your dash? Ooh, that's
right.
good. What's your dash? Yeah.
I like that.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you all for being here. If you're watching here today, just put in the comments what your takeaways are. We'd love to hear from you. And if you are on the replay, do the same thing. We want to hear what you got from this conversation with Carolina and Steve. This has been an honor, really, and so much
It's an
fun.
honor for me.
And here's the thing, guys.
Absolutely.
You know how you say, how you do one thing, oh, is how you do everything. That's what I heard you say, Caroline.
Yeah.
Listen, if I ain't having fun, I ain't doing it. So, so thank you guys for being here. Like, subscribe to the channel, bring your friends the next time, share it with everybody as much as you can. I would love, love, love that for us to hear from you and to hear what you want to hear from us as well. We know what we're bringing to you. You guys bring your conversations here as well, and we'll bring the guests on here that you want to hear. Because here's the thing, guys, success is different for everyone. Success is not linear, and success gets to be whatever you create it to be. So if you want to learn from somebody, let us know, put it in the comments, and I'll do my best to bring them on to serve you here on the Success Code. Have a great rest of the week. Thank you, Carolina, again for jumping in for Ernelita. Thank you, Steve, for your wisdom. I appreciate you both, and see you guys next time.
Thank you, Lorna.
Thank you so much for having us on here.